Hello there. We need action today. This has gone too far for too long. I have had an absolute gutsful of practically all of our lead politicians in Parliament failing to address the unspeakable, abhorrent issue of what, on this platform, I am only allowed to refer to as the groomers. Groomers who have taken evil advantage of thousands, hundreds of thousands of our daughters. Both Labour and the Tories have buried this as deep as they can in order to maintain cohesion as they force such rapid and damaging demographic changes on us as they can. And our daughters have paid the price of this acquiescence to evil. Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe and a few others are prepared to stand up for our daughters and granddaughters, but I hear very little else of any consequence from any other quarter. Forget the platitudes of Kemi Badenoch and the Tories, they did virtually nothing. Forget Starmer's diversionary tactics, they mean nothing other than illustrate the panic that is setting in as the truth emerges. I know this will get me branded as far right by the usual suspects. But what the UK is in need of right now is a single-issue party, a party of law and order that will protect our vulnerable offspring from predators. A party that will not hold back, but ensure extreme and harsh sentences are meted out to all of those who would involve themselves in such activity or facilitate it in any way. Children are our future. They are the jewel in the crown of any decent community. So it must be considered as a national shame and scandal that so many in the UK have been subjected to such horrendous treatment for so many years, decades in fact, at the hands of those we cannot and must not criticise. All made worse by reports of the arrest of the fathers who go to the police for help, rather than the arrest of the perpetrators. But even worse, that horrific treatment has been aided, abetted and facilitated by weak, wet, woke politicians, both local and national, police officers, social workers, civil servants, lawyers and judges. And now our current Prime Minister stands on a podium and talks about concerned people spreading lies on social media and only being interested in themselves rather than the victims, saying that those questioning the official narrative on this are using the far-right playbook of whipping up intimidation and violence and jumping on a bandwagon of the far-right. Intimidation and violence, all I've seen is robust comments and serious questioning. Maybe Starmer is brewing up for another legal purge against the far right. There is even talk, although I can't prove it, that a previous Prime Minister sent out a letter telling the police to ignore the affected children. An instruction that, if true, would be an order to police officers to ignore the very constable's oath they swore to uphold. But as I said, those claims are out there, but I have not seen a copy of that letter or missive. And now we have successive governments failing to put in place a serious inquiry into the whole scandal, preferring instead to concentrate on council-led inquiries in specific geographical areas, or inquiries that cover specific timeframes or specific aspects of this issue. All, as far as I can see, to ensure the whole lot gets given the Hillsborough treatment, kicked as far into the future as possible, in the hope it will go away after being watered down over time. That is not good enough. But in reality, would any inquiry on this, put together by the establishment blob, achieve anything other than tick a box? When what we are desperate for is immediate, hard-hitting action. And to rub salt into the wound, we find out from GB News that moves to provide compensation for the victims was blocked by senior Whitehall civil serpents. All this will leave ordinary British people steaming, and so it should. And it's taken Tesla owner Elon Musk venting forth on his X platform against the UK establishment that has tried its level best over the years to cover all this up, for the sake of the diversity they're forcing on us, it seems. And this has taken this issue global on a grand scale. How can the UK call itself civilised and advanced while this cancerous sore eats at the heart of this crumbling nation? Any right-minded person in this country that reads only 1% of what these victims were, and probably still are, subjected to, will be treating the failure to act now, today, to root out those responsible and hold them fully to account as an abhorrent failure of duty by those we have vested the power in to protect the vulnerable. I believe that if a general election was held today, the party that stepped forward and pledged to take this to be their 100% priority would be voted in comprehensively. Only in certain areas of the country would there be any electoral or official pushback, and those areas should of course be the ones targeted for first action. We need a party that will only put one main issue into their first King's speech: protecting our vulnerable children. A party that will promise to pull in every retired civil and military police officer and investigator in order to find and rescue the vulnerable children, as well as hunt down and detain the suspected perpetrators. A party that will promise to pull in retired prison officers if required. We need a party that will promise to put £1 billion aside in compensation for the victims as a starter for 10. We need a party that is prepared to put in place, within a month, emergency legislation to get this done. Legislation that includes the building of a sufficient number of holding camps to process the offenders in. A party that will promise to get the courts gearing up for 24-hour-a-day sittings to prioritise this and smash it. A party that promises a referendum on the type of punishments to be meted out to those found guilty of the worst of these crimes. And there can be no excuses, as, unlike the Channel crossings, there are no external influences to worry about. We can do this. We need a party that will name and shame politicians and officials who try to block any of this and sack them where appropriate. We need a party that will ride roughshod over any insidious claims that we must tread carefully where cultural niceties are concerned, for fear of offending. There are no cultural niceties where this sort of ghastly behaviour is concerned. This is a zero-tolerance issue. Yes, zero tolerance. The very fact of official bobbing and weaving to avoid addressing this obnoxious situation shows that there is a real official tolerance of it, where zero tolerance must be the yardstick. And zero tolerance of this is not what you will get from the mainstream parties. Keir Starmer proudly says he smashed the so-called far-right riots. There was no pussyfooting around there, was there? So what's the difference with protecting our precious children?